name is Stephanie. Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. This channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things the kids say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. It is the middle of July, year 2020. It has been a while since I've come on here to chit-chat about stuff. I think the last time I posted was sometime in May, maybe 2 months ago, and I certainly hope that you are safe and healthy, and that if you are not healthy, that you get well soon. For me, when I am stressed out, I tend to need to do something with my hands. Sometimes that looks like pulling weeds, sometimes that looks like chopping vegetables, sometimes that looks like sewing a lot, or knitting, or crocheting, and I've certainly been doing a little bit of all of that in the last several months. And no, my garden is not free of weeds, but the weeds just keep coming. But I certainly don't mind going out to the garden and weeding. It is so nice to be able to have that as something that we as a family can enjoy. So I do have quite a number of finished projects to share with you, as well as some works in progress and some books that we are reading. So let's get to it. One of the finished projects I'd like to share with you is my Triangle Parade shawl. The pattern is by Stephen West, and I decided to deviate from the pattern a little bit in that I didn't do the assigned colors where they were written in the pattern. I decided to do mine all in shades of purple, and then I wanted the colors that were more speckled or variegated to be in the sections that were not striped, and then for the striped sections to pair a solid with a speckled or variegated. I think I did all speckled. I don't think I did many that were just variegated. So I will stand up to show you here. I don't think I'll be able to get the whole thing in one screen, but I will put up the photos that I shared on my Instagram at edible.thoughts.makes of me wearing the finished shawl. But I absolutely love it. It is fingering weight, so you can see that it's see-through. I love the gauge it was knit up at. It was just a really fun knit, and I really liked how the contrast in the striping came out, and I like how the triangles without the striping really show off the yarns that are more variegated and speckled. I also left off the last repeat section, so it would be even bigger than this, but I really like the size that this ended up being. I can wear it comfortably around my neck like this, or over my shoulders. So yes, this is super fun. I think I used US 5 or 3.75 millimeter needles, which is what it's called for in the pattern. And I was planning on keeping track of the weights of all my yarns for each section, so that if I were to do it again and I was going to use random bits of yarn, that I would know how much yardage I needed for each section, but it didn't end up being diligent about it, so I don't have a complete yardage at the end, but I did have so much fun with it, and I could see doing another one. Like, you could do one in shades of blue and teal with pops of orange and yellow. I think that would be so pretty. If you want to go more monochrome, you could go more monochrome. I feel like you could also go greens, like forest green, olive green, lichen like greens, and for your deeper contrast you could do a dark brown. But yeah, so many options to do for this pattern. I loved it. I could see doing another one. It was really fun. Plus, I really enjoy garter, and I really enjoy this built-in I-cord edging. I don't think I'm giving anything away. I think it says that on the pattern information. But yeah, it's really fun. I recommend it. I love it. So then, because I knit myself a purple shawl, and then my older daughter has one that's kind of like purplish, tealish, my younger daughter said, where's my purple shawl? So I knit her one too, but I didn't do a triangle parade. I followed Tin Can Knit's free pattern for the grain shawl. And what I did for this one is I just took yarns that I had that are purple, and then I held them double. And it's a slight, ever slight fade, because I held this one double with a lighter purple, and then I went to kind of a more medium-ish light purple, and then a slightly darker purple, so you can kind of see a little bit of a fade there. And then I just went until I ran out. So I think, so I used a US 8, which is a 5mm needle, and I don't, let me see, check my notes here, how much yardage I used. I used a total of 162 yards of, or 162 grams of fingering weight yarn, so that was held double. And it fits her perfectly. The wingspan I measured out to 54 inches, and the depth is 21 inches. And she just absolutely loves it. I mean, it fits me too, as like this. So I suppose I could borrow it from her maybe. But she's been tying it around her waist, wearing it like a skirt, and putting it on her lap like a little lap blanket, and wearing it over her shoulders and like a scarf. And even though it's super hot out, she's been wearing it mostly just inside, but sometimes she plays with it outside as well. But I love that she loves it, and it was a really fun and quick knit. So I highly recommend that, especially if you have a lot of different fingering weight yarns. You can just combine them all together and make a big or small marled shawl of various colors. So yes, that was really fun. Since we are on shawls, I will show you my most recently finished one. I don't know why I made another worsted weight shawl, especially in the heat of summer, but I think I was just wanting something that was really cozy, really comfy, and I had this single ply non-superwash worsted weight yarn. It's Malabrigo worsted in Damask Rose, and it was just meant to be a shawl. So I made the Hipster Shawl by Joji Locatelli. It is a large crescent, I think it's a crescent shaped shawl, and I mostly followed the pattern. The only thing I did differently was at the end, I added on a few more of the garter rows, and then I did a picot bind off instead of a regular bind off, and then I didn't add any tassels or fringe. I probably could have finished it in 3 skeins, but my skeins were a little short of 100 grams each, and then because I extended it thinking I was just going to use up the rest of the 3 skeins, but then I forgot that my bind off was going to require more yardage, so then I broke into a 4th one, which was fine because I had 4. And I think I ended up using maybe 12 grams of that 4th one. So my yardage came out to be 628 yards that I used for this project, and I believe that's really close to how much yardage she approximates in her pattern. So it worked out just fine. But I absolutely love it. This stitch is a really fun stitch to make. And then the texture was really fun to do. I find this shawl reversible because it's garter, and then this crossover pattern here doesn't really have a right side, wrong side. And then the way she wrote her texture, I don't feel like that really has a right or wrong side either. So I like that because I don't have to really pay attention to which side I am wearing it. This is one that is pretty big. Mine came out a little bit bigger than what the pattern states. I think her pattern uses worsted or DK weight yarn, and mine is listed at worsted or Aran weight yarn, so it's a little bit on the heavier side, but my wingspan ended up 97 inches and my deepest point is 25 inches. So it is super cozy, really snuggly. I've never knit in the single ply worsted before, and I feel like it's like everything you imagine something cozy to be. So it is so nice. I love it a lot. When I did my wash, I used a eucalyptus, what is it called? Eucalyptus Eucalan wash, and then I put a few drops of like a rose perfume in it. Oh, it smells so good. I love it. So yes, that one worked up pretty quickly, being worsted weight. And again, I don't know why I felt like making this in the middle of the summer, but it'll be great for the fall. And our nights and mornings do end up getting chillier pretty quickly as fall approaches, even if it gets hot during the day. So that'll be really nice to have. So I think that's it for shawls. But speaking of holding yarns together and just comfy and cozy, Tiff over at Tiff Hand Knits came out with this really fun pattern of marled socks with fingering weight held double. So they're DK weight socks, and her pattern is pretty ingenious because you can make them without the toe section, so they're essentially foot warmers, or you can make it with the toe section, and then she writes the pattern to have 2 different weights, so you can hold 3 together or 2 strands of yarn together. And you can follow the way she does her fade and marling in the pattern, or just do whatever you want. And I did whatever I wanted. So my first pair, I did the toe-less version, and I just made each one different. So I would knit a scrap of yarn until it ran out, or just stop whenever I wanted to. Now I did hold one main color the same throughout, and then I just swapped out my second color. But there's texture along the top. They are really comfortable. I'll insert photos here or somewhere of me wearing them, but I just adore them. They are so comfy. And I did go down 1 needle size, and I feel like they fit very well. I did the adult XS size, and yes, I went down 1 needle size. But I love them. I think they're so cozy, so comfy, and you can adjust them to how they fit best for you. And then the second pair I made with the toe, and this one I made them a little bit more similar. So with this one, I held the main color the same in both, and then the second color I used the same in each one, but just not in the same order. And these I also absolutely love. They are just autumn in a sock. I have browns, I have plum, I have like kind of a light peachy pink and light brown and that red. Oh, I love them so much. So I'll insert a picture of those worn too somewhere in here. So those are my socks. Something I've noticed recently is that my socks, when I put them away in my drawer, they fold up much better. Not like this, because then you have a heel that sticks out depending on how you fold them, but better like this, kind of like the way you wear them. So then I fold my heel flap down, and then I line up my socks so the heels are sandwiched, so I've got a cuff on each end, and then I kind of like roll slash fold them up, and then I stack them in. So that's how they seem to fold best in my drawer, but I'm sure everybody has their own method for making it work best for them. But that is just kind of how I've found works best for me. Otherwise the heels end up sticking out and then things don't line up as well. Anyway, that's me and my sock folding. Now, another pair of socks that I made, oh yeah, so you'll see with these, I folded them like you would take them off of a sock blocker flat, so then this part kind of sticks out, so then I end up folding it down before I fold it up like this. It works, but it's just not really the same. So these socks I love. I knit them using self-striping yarn. It's called Peachy Punch, and it is by Samantha at the Scrumptious Pearl, and I love how these came out. So I cast on a 56 stitch count for my feet, and I did 20 rounds of 2x2 ribbing, and then I did a 70 round leg, and then I did a fish lips kiss heel. That pattern is by Socks Therapist. It's for $1. You get basically an entire pamphlet on how to knit socks, or how to knit your heel to best fit you for your socks. So definitely worth it. And then for my foot, I do 60 rounds, and then I do a rounded toe. Now for this one, I did not substitute in any yarn for the cuff, heel, or toe. I am working on a second pair of self-striping socks where I am using a contrast color for the heel, because for the Fish Lips Kiss heel, it won't disrupt your striping patterning if you substitute another color. So I am doing that for this other pair of socks, but that's the only part that I'm adding the contrast. That also works well if, let's say, you are using a 50-gram ball of yarn and you think you might not have enough for the length of socks that you want to make, so you can substitute in another color for your cuff and your heel and your toe, and then you'll have more yarn of your main color to do the whole sock. I will be doing that for a future pair of socks that I will be using a 50-gram ball of self-striping yarn for, but I will not be casting on those yet because I need my US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles for another pair of socks. So we'll get there when we get there. I think that is all the socks I have to show you right now. I have a pair of Christmas socks for my husband in the works because I would love to get Christmas socks done for me, my husband, and our 2 kids before December so that we can start wearing them December 1st. So I need to get a head start on it, and that way I'm not stressed out about it later, and then I can just leisurely work on it as I go, because as you may know, I am not a monogamous knitter, so I have multiple projects going on simultaneously. Not that I'm working on all of them at the same time, but they kind of suit different moods. So if you've watched previous episodes, you've heard me talk about this before, where sometimes my hands feel like they need to work round and round stockinette on a basic sock. So that's what I'll gravitate towards. Or maybe the small needles are hurting my hands and I need to go round and round on the body of a sweater that's in stockinette. So I might have that going. Or sometimes maybe I need something a little more complicated, so maybe that's a sock with a pattern on it, or a shawl that has some eyelets or something like that. So I feel like I don't want to detest working on a project because that's the one project I have to stick to, and that's why I tend to have several going on simultaneously. And it may not be just knitting too. I also crochet, so sometimes it's a crochet project that I'm working on, although the crochet projects I work on tend to be pretty quick and be done in one day. So I won't have like an ongoing crochet project, or sometimes it's a sewing project. Sometimes I just really like the hiss of that iron and the whir of the machine, and it's just done, and the snip of those scissors, so good. So I guess that can segue into some sewing projects that I had finished recently. So I have never quilted or done any patchwork in my life, at least not that I remember, maybe just not successfully. But I was inspired recently by Denise of Earth Tones Girl and Mars at Hey Brownberry, who had been doing some patchwork. And when I make box to bottom bags, project bags, on the bottom you cut out some squares. So they're usually like around 2 by 2 inches. Well, I save up all those squares because there's no reason to toss them. They're perfectly good squares of fabric. And I decided to try my hand at making myself a patchwork bag. I love it. It's so cute. So my hesitation with doing any quilting or patchwork is that I just don't have the patience for it. And I wouldn't call myself a perfectionist, but if the lines didn't line up, it would bother me. So it just wasn't something that I was interested in doing. But in a small bag form where it doesn't really matter if they line up or not, I feel like that's where I felt like I could give myself permission to try. So all the materials I had at home already, so I didn't have to go purchase anything outside of my house. So these are all scraps from other projects. This is like a natural canvas, and then this webbing or cotton webbing strap came from packaging of something that I saved. And then I lined it with yellow, and it's just very cheery, and it's the perfect size project bag for like 2 up to 3 skein projects. Now of course after I make one, I can never just stop there, so I made another one. This one doesn't have as many pieces, but I wanted to play around a little bit with maybe not completely linear or boxy shapes. So this one, I just did 3. I really like how this one turned out too. I used the same natural canvas on the backing, the same material I still had for this strap here, and then here's the inside. So I like that they can all sit up. The canvas is stiff enough to hold up on its own, and I really like this size of bag. It's pretty perfect. So yeah, that's my sewing. I would like to share with you just a couple of my works in progress. So since I mentioned the socks earlier with the self-striping, I wanted to show you this one. So this self-striping yarn is also by Scrumptious Pearl. This one is called Did Somebody Say Summer, and it is just so perfect. I have one completed so far, and this one is one that I did put a contrast heel on. And you can see how it doesn't disrupt the striping. So I picked this yellow, I think it's a Knit Picks Hawthorn and Compass is the colorway name. I also did the 20 rounds for the 2x2 rib, 70 for the leg, fish lips, kiss heel, 60, I think maybe I've done 65 for the foot this time before doing the rounded toe. I can't remember exactly, but maybe. But I really like this length for the leg. So then my toe ended on yellow, which is right before orange, and orange is what I started with. So I'm hoping that the second one that I've started will actually be very close to my first one. We shall see how it goes. It might be off by like 1 round, but that's okay. I think it'll be really cool. So I put light bulb stitch markers along every 10 rounds, and that just helps me keep track of where I am at and make sure that my second sock ends up being the same size as my first sock. So I'm really enjoying these socks that just go round and round. I think it's really fun, and it's something that I can do if maybe we're sitting outside and the kids are playing, or just something that I don't have to think too hard about, or tell anybody to be quiet because I'm counting or something like that. So, and then the last work in progress I'd like to share with you is a Love Note sweater. So I had finished one Love Note sweater earlier. I'll share a photo of that here. And I really wanted to cast on a second one. I have this beautiful yarn by Colleen at Little Lionhead Knits. This one is her Shelter colorway. I can't tell if the camera is making it a little less green here. Kind of looks like white gray on the screen, but it's a very light lichen kind of green. It has navy and rust, orange, olive green specks in it, and then her apple green mohair. So I'm holding these two together. She often has like a sale section when she has her shop updates, and they are discounted because either the color wasn't exactly right, or they're experimental or whatever. There's just something that's different from them. And so I always check there because her colors are beautiful regardless if they are experimental or one of a kinds or anything, but it gives me the opportunity to try more things. So I picked these up and I love them together. It is so pretty. Let me show you where I'm at. I have split the body and the sleeves, so I'm just going round and round at this point. But it's been a little bit hot to pick up a sweater in mohair, so I haven't been knitting on it as much. But look at that. It's probably kind of hard to see. But the lace section is done and will open up once it gets blocked. I have a marker on the front indicating which side is the front. It is a 4-leaf clover, and it is going to be so nice. So I do my Love Note sweater a little bit different. In the pattern, it calls for doing a provisional cast on for the neck, and then you go back and make the neck how you want to. I didn't do that, so I didn't do that with my first one either. I just cast on for the number of stitches that I think I want, and then I kind of work the pattern backwards at the end, and once I get to the stitch count number that I should be at, then I go back to the beginning of the pattern where you start the yoke. So that's how I did it. But I really am enjoying it. I've never really knitted with mohair before, or very sparingly, and I can't say it's my favorite thing to knit with on its own, but held double with something, I do enjoy the fuzziness, and it just adds another layer of softness, and depending on what color you choose, it can just change your fabric completely. Like if you went light on dark or dark on light, I feel like it can just change the mood. So it's been something fun to play around with. I am enjoying it, and I think it'll be really nice and cozy to wear in the fall and winter. So I think that is it for my projects that I want to share with you. Let's get to books. Some books the kids and I have been reading is this Dragon Masters series. This is book 2, but there are, I believe, 16 or 18, I can't remember how many books are out there right now, and another book is coming out. The author is still writing the books, so I think one's coming out in October. It says on the back that it is for reading grade level 2, and my daughter will be a 2nd grader this fall, and she is flying through them. She absolutely loves them. And for me to know what she's reading and just to have something in common for us to talk about as well, I read them as well, and then I read them to my youngest daughter, who's 4, and she has enjoyed it as well, and I can hear them talking about certain themes or characters in the books in their own pretend play, so that's really fun. Basically, there are these children who are chosen to be dragon masters by this special stone, and then they go on these adventures, and it's really fun. So that's something that we have been enjoying. And then a book I have been reading for myself is Race in Minnesota, A Good Time for Truth. It is a collection of essays written by people of color who live in Minnesota about their experiences living in Minnesota. And it is very, very powerful, and I highly recommend it. I have not read through all the essays yet. It is not meant to be a book that you just kind of like read straight through. The way I've been taking it is reading one essay at a time and like thinking through it and then picking it up here and there, but it's not one that you have to read like straight from beginning to end either. Like you can read each essay individually. They're not necessarily tied to one another. But I believe that learning from each other is so important, and actively learning, so listening to what people say and doing something about it. And this is one way that I am learning and doing something about the other pandemic that is going on in our world, which is racism. And it is real, and it affects everybody, and we all need to do our part. And I hope that even as we are doing this work to make the world a better place, that you are also finding time to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, then you won't have the energy to do the work that needs to be done. And everybody's self-care looks different. So I'm not talking about like bubble baths and manicures and pedicures. I'm talking about like ways that you find rejuvenating or energizing or relaxing or calming, or just what is working for you and speaks to you to take care of yourself in order to keep going. And it's just so important because I feel like oftentimes we're bombarded with so much information on what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing, what you should be thinking, what you shouldn't be thinking, and it's just like, and you just can't think. At least that's how I feel. And I just need that time to breathe, to think, to process, to digest, and do what I know and what I feel is something I am capable of doing and can honestly stand behind what I'm doing. And then also if I make mistakes, or when I make mistakes, because we will make mistakes, we are human beings, that I will be in the mindset to realize I made a mistake, apologize for the mistake, and do better. Because we can't do better unless we know better, but if we're not in a state of mind where we can process that information, I feel like it just isn't productive. So my bottom line is everybody needs to do the work. Everybody needs to take care of themselves so that they can also take care of their neighbors, and we can do this. We will get through all of this messiness. We will get through it. So with that, cheers to being creative, because being creative is more than just arts and crafts. Being creative is how we live our life and thinking outside the box. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, be healthy, take care. I'll talk to you later. Bye.